Ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to begin, please be seated. Before we get started, I have several announcements. First, I would like to see your cooperation in completing this debate. Next, if any one of you are carrying their phones, please switch it off or turn it into silent mode to avoid interruptions. If it is an urgent call, please exit the room first before taking the call. Thank you for your consideration and attention. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be your moderator for today's important debate. I am Miss Charlene Guy, and I am jubilant to welcome you all to the Philippine Intercollegiate Debate Cup 2022 with the motion of restriction of cross-dressing in universities. I am so delighted to see you in here, eager to engage with different stand regarding with some relevant issues. Almost every human society throughout history has had expected norms for each gender relating style, color, or type of clothing they're expected to wear. And likewise, most societies have had a set of guidelines, views, or even laws defining what type of clothing is appropriate for each gender. The term cross-dressing is the act of wearing items clothing which is not commonly associated with one's sex. Does the clothing choice of the person making change to the learning environment? It means that there is an illegal act taking place. Where do we draw the line between social norms dictation or legal dictation? To make our minds enlightened, we have here the students of PSED programs willing to prove their claims, points, and teamworks. Now, let us introduce the debating teams. All of them are knowledgeable and is also a stormtrooper. Seated to the right, representing the preposition side, we have Miss April Jane Fuertes, our first preposition speaker. We also have Miss Maria Morano, our second preposition speaker. And last, we have Miss Alma De Asis, our final and third preposition speaker. Speaking for the opposition side, we have here Miss Adelfa Punay, our first opposition speaker. We also have Miss Lindy Anso Aybagyo, our second opposition speaker. And we have Mr. Ronald J. Lolo, our final and third opposition speaker. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed to our proper debate. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker from the preposition side to deliver her claim. Alright, Miss April Jane Fuertes, the time is yours. The time begins the moment you speak.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, my worthy opponents, members, and colleagues. I hereby humbly express myself in gratitude for today's interest in today's debate about the restrictions of cross-dressing in universities. Southern Lady State University in all campuses about the 2019's revised handbook under the category of academic policy, section 16.6 is the school's policy about school uniforms. It states that male and female shall wear prescribed uniforms. In male, it must be long slacks like the usual ones, and for female, must be knee-level skirt and the blouse that must not be inserted. Uniforms must be paired with closed shoes and not slippers nor rubbers. Also, wearing of PE uniforms during PE classes. Gentlemen, universities as well as SLSU made policies that students must avoid in order to have a systematic and organized school. In case of wearing school uniforms, students must strictly follow the design the school has prepared. The main thing is to show decency of every student that is enrolled in this type of prestigious university. But what is important thing for us to understand is that cross-dressing is an act of dressing in a gender-preferred expression. This concerns about our LGBTQ community and other students as well. The most overrated thing that is most likely to occur is the discrimination issue. Well, Senator Joel Villanueva pointed out that prohibition policy about cross-dressing is not a form of discrimination. He also added that if one cannot submit to the policy and culture of that certain organization, then one must have to respect it. Because these policies are embedded with consent and agreement of all parties and officials, therefore being released and practiced in schools. With respect to my members of LGBTQ community, I firmly believe that one has the freedom to express themselves, not just only about cross-dressing. However, if one would violate school policy, especially about the school dress code, then none is exempted, and depending on the school on how they will handle this type of cases. While you might say that prohibition policy is kind of discriminating and violating the Equal Protection Clause, we should not disregard the fact that schools are obliged regarding gender identity issues in line with cross-dressing. On the other hand, if school has a dress code, it is important that the dress code policy are enforced in a fair and consistent manner.
Yes, that's true. How about from the other side? It's time for the first speaker of opposition side to deliver her claim. Miss Adelpha Punay, the time is yours.
Now that we're here to the preposition side, I have 2 points that needs to be addressed. One point is that the speaker told us that this policy is embedded with the consent and agreement of all parties. So, the question here is that, is this policy also including the consent of the student, or this policy are just made up and agreed upon with the higher officials? Second point is that you said that this policy is imposed to show decency to the students that they are enrolled in that university. So what do you mean by to show decency? Is it cross-dressing a decent dressing? Because for your information and based on its definition, cross-dressing is wearing clothing that is opposite to your sex. It does not necessarily mean that cross-dressing is wearing provocative and revealing clothing. There is instances that a male can wear a female's uniform, and a female can also wear male's uniform. And I guess uniform are still a decent clothing. So ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. Welcome from the side of this house. I, your first opposition speaker, will be talking about allowing cross-dressing in the university. So let me begin this argument by looking at the Lisay's case. So the Lisay's case is a 20-year-old woman at the University of Caloocan who identified himself as a male since birth and also was diagnosed with gender identity disorder. And he was wearing a suit from her junior high school, and the reason why he repeatedly expelled from the class due to the fact that he was wearing a boy's clothing. And the school argued that the girl wearing boy's clothing is disrupting the learning environment. And I believe that a choice of clothing is just a way of expressing themselves. And I believe, according to the Article 10, everyone has a freedom of expression. It means that everyone can wear what they want as long as it is a form of expression and not bringing harm to other students. And the clothes themselves were not distracting, but the mindset, the environment, the other students, the faculty, and the students themselves. And preventing the students from wearing certain clothes, therefore, was suppression of protected speech. Keep in mind that this kind of policy, the restriction of cross-dressing policy, do not just bring mental health to the LGBTQ student, but it will also violate the students' right to education and freedom of expression. It is not just also, but the restriction policy also breaks both domestic law, which is the Philippine Constitution, and the child protection policy. Additionally, the school do not have the right to impose that policy just because others are uncomfortable seeing them. And it is the school job to make the students safe in school. Now, if that policy will be implemented, the question is school still be a safe place for everyone? And a lot of prestigious universities, including UP and Harvard, who encourage everyone to wear what they want. So why not SLSUTO and other universities should also do the same? And there are no cases that cross-dressing can affect the academic performance of the student. That is why it is school and universities should be allow students what they want to wear as long as it is form of expression and it do not bring harm to the other student. So that is all for today and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. That's the opinion from our first opposition speaker. She stated that having this kind of policy, which is the restriction of cross-dressing, is not just extremely damaging to an LGBT student, but this policy also violated student right to education and freedom of expression. Also, students who wear what they want is a form of expressing themselves. What can our second preposition speaker say about the stand of our first opposition speaker? Miss Maria Mirano, the floor is yours.
The first speaker of the opposition side stated that the restriction of cross-dressing can cause harm and discrimination of students. How sure are you, Miss, that allowing cross-dressing in schools or universities can stop the discrimination students experience? Then what's the use of the laws protecting the students from discrimination and harassment? Keep in mind that there are lots of sources of discrimination and harassment, and the way someone dressed is not an exception. Well then, Ms. First Speaker of the opposition side stated the Philippine Constitution and the Child Protection Policy. For this point, there are no federal laws requiring that schools or universities permits cross-dressing. However, there are state laws holding that schools or universities' failure to protect students from discrimination and harassment based on students' sexual orientation in which they can express the way they dressed. Additionally, there are some state laws and local ordinances may require that transgender students and students who do not conform to traditional ideas of gender-appropriate dress can be protected from discrimination and harassment while in the school environment. For example, if the school has a dress code, it is important that the dress code is enforced in fair and consistent manner. Dress policies can be developed and revised if necessary to the needs of all students in mind, society, and legal implications of discriminatory dress code. All students must be held the same dress code standards. For example, in our university, Southern Leyte State University, Tomas Opus, we had an appropriate dress code to all students, professors, and administrators. Sexually provocative clothing are prohibited. Since it is prohibited, it is equally enforced to all students, of the university, transgender students, and straight gender students. Finally, the point of this argument is that there are no federal laws that permits cross-dressing in schools and universities. However, there are state laws that protect students from discrimination and harassment based on students' sexual orientation in which they can express in the way they dress. Therefore, dress code policies are enforced consistently and equally to all students hold the same dress code standards. That's all, thank you.
Yes, it's true that sexually provocative clothing is prohibited, and students should wear decent clothes like wearing appropriate uniform. Thank you. That's the point of our second opposition speaker. Now, let's witness how the second opposition speaker show her point regarding to the strong point of the other side. May I call in the second opposition speaker, Miss Landian Soy Bagyu. The time is yours.
The second proposition speaker had told us that there are no federal laws requiring that school permits to cross-gender dressing, and I agree with that. But then, here are questions that I wanted to ask earlier, but you never gave me a chance to speak up. Firstly, are there also federal laws that universities can forbid cross-gender dressing? I bet there's none. For that, laws that say cross-gender dressing is forbidden in universities are completely untrue. Secondly, Ms. Speaker also said that there is a case law that protects the students from being discriminated against in what they wear. Well then, Ms. Dear Speaker, for your information, even if they are wearing what you call uniform, they are still subjected to discrimination and sexual harassment. It is because sex discrimination is not really on the dress or clothes that they wear. It's in the eyes of the people who choose to think as an uneducated individual. Thirdly, Ms. Speaker also mentioned something like gender-appropriate dress. Are the dress that are to be worn by the cross-dressers not appropriate? How appropriate is appropriate, Miss? Fourthly, I agree with what Ms. Speaker said. Sexually provocative clothing is prohibited, and I give kudos to our dear campus SLSU-TO about that. We are students, and we should wear decent clothes, but that rule has nothing to do with cross-dressing. I believe that a lot of people tend to misunderstand the word cross-dressing. For everyone's cognizance, cross-dressing is the act of wearing clothing that is not usually associated with one sex. And it was not written there that letting them wear revealing clothes in the school premises. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. I am the second speaker from the opposition team. We, as today's opposition, firmly believe that we should allow cross-gender dressing in the universities. Why? Article 10 of Human Rights Act says that everyone has the freedom to expression. We are living in a democratic country where everyone has the freedom to express themselves, but when we restrict LGBTQIA+ people to cross-dress in their universities, we are more likely violating their rights to express themselves, since cross-dressing is one of their ways to express who and what they are. To supplement with my first point, LGBT rights bill prohibits and penalizes any discriminatory acts against lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgender people. In addition to that, sexual orientation and gender identity expression, or the SOGI bill, or what we call anti-discrimination bill, aims to set into law measures to prevent various economic and public accommodation related acts of discrimination against people based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. So, here are questions that you need to answer. Does allowing LGBTQIA+ to cross-dress lessen the worth of the straight men and women? Does cross-dressing an offensive act? Or does cross-dressing affect the learning performance of a child? I believe that cross-dressing does not pose threats to anyone. As a student in this university, I do hope that cross-dressing will be implemented in the universities and school. That would be all. Thank you.
Oh, that was so interesting point. Do you agree with me? Okay, let me recap what you said. The second position said that there is a case law that protects students by being discriminated against on the way to dress, but the second opposition argued that even if they are wearing uniform, they are still submitted by discrimination and sexual harassment. It is because, according to her, discrimination is not really on the dress that they wear, but it is in the eyes of people who choose to think as an educated individual. Thank you, Miss, for giving us some reliable information. And now, let's welcome the third speaker from the preposition side. Miss Alma D. Ases, the floor is yours.
Restriction of cross-dressing to LGBTQ plus people in school is not really a form of violating their right or freedom to express themselves. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am your third speaker for the preposition team. I'd like to deal with 2 points here. First is that there's always a limitation in everything we do. Second, there's always a right place and a right situation to do what we want. And here's the thing. Every school have a divided uniform and every student is either boy, girl, lesbian, or gay, etc. And it is the policy they need to submit and respect. Can you imagine a non-uniform school? Students might be parts of each other in dressing competition. Now tell me, does allowing them to dress whatever they wanted to do not affect the learning in school? Now tell me, does allowing them to dress whatever they wanted to do not affect the learning in school? Or are you just going to accept and tolerate them? Student is fair in school no matter how different their background. School provides specific dress for each student and this can teach them to learn discipline and self-control. Respect begets respect. You cannot trample on one's right to give right to others. Anyway, you can have whatever you wanted to do after or outside the school. Furthermore, the points of having school is to be educated or to educate a student. It is not a fashion show that anyone can wear whatever they wanted to. That's all. Thank you.
Wow, that was a very good idea. And it's true that students, especially LGBT, can only express their rights inside the campus, but also outside the campus. She pointed out that students must follow the policies in school and universities as a responsible student. How about the opinion of the other side? Mr. Ronald J. Lolo, it's your time to express what you want to express. The time is yours.
The third proposition speaker said that there's a proper place in expressing our identity. School is not a fashion show and we need to abide the rules and regulation of the school about this matter. I am glad that you've recognized that, but implementing a policy that violates the right and freedom of the students is impermissible. Actually, we are not only discussing dressing civilian here, but giving LGBTQIA+ members, specifically trans individuals, the right to wear a uniform or dress according to their choice and identity. And you've got that fact wrong. What if cross-dressing in uniform is students' source of self-confidence and self-esteem? How can the school have the audacity to see students uncomfortable, bullied, and discriminated against? How can you have the fortitude to see students struggling as long as they abide the rules and regulations of the school? We need to give students the equal rights and disregard the limitations that prevent them from reaching their full potential. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. I am the third speaker of the opposition team. Trans individuals comes from all backgrounds. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. I am the third speaker of the opposition team. Trans individuals come from all backgrounds. They're amongst society's most disadvantaged. LGBTQIA+ individuals face discrimination, harassment, and violence because of their gender identity and expression. To the extent humanly possible, flexible dress code are necessary. Trans individuals and others should dress according to their choice and identity. Schools and organizations should make LGBTQIA+ friendly rules, regulations, and policies. Organizations should learn their needs, identify barriers, and revise policies and procedures. This provides transgender non-conforming people dignity, respect, equal rights, and freedom from discrimination. The central question at this point is, in the age of free expression, do society and schools promote conformity or inclusivity? Cross-dressing restrictions counter modern revolutions like free expression, LGBTQIA+ rights, and individual arts and fashion. Students should choose clothes that show their values, views, and identities. Second, students follow such policies out of fear and not willful obedience. And third, students wear clothing of their biological sex out of command, not pride. This limits their freedom of expression since what they wear expresses one's identity. Several studies find no correlation between restriction of cross-dressing and academic ability in multiple levels. According to the Human Rights Campaign, LGBTQIA+ students are being harassed at twice the rate of heterosexual students, which continues to take a toll on their education. I think when we encourage an inclusive environment, students, teachers, and administrators aren't scared to be called allies. Awareness is a basic step. As a consequence, through inclusive policies, nurturing rules, and not limiting the students of their expression, the school could welcome all students regardless of their gender identity and expression. Therefore, cross-dressing should be implemented for inclusive environment and for every student. Thank you.
Wow! Thank you, Mr. Lolo. It was a very good argument. He talks about inclusivity versus uniformity. And it's hard to choose between the two, right? Both are good and relevant. It is the fact that we need to become a critical thinker to choose the best one than the good one. Now, it's time for the both sides to summarize their argument. Let's welcome again the first speaker of the proposition side, Miss April Jane Fuertes, and it will be followed by the first opposition speaker, Miss Adelpha Coleman.
Gentlemen, thank you for a very vigorous debate. We have come to an end and it's time for our closing statement. We pointed out that cross-dressing restriction on universities made significant impact on the university itself. It is a school policy that every student must abide and shall be respected since it is a rule that will help everyone practice professionalism. However, in the forms of discrimination that may occur, including discrimination about cross-dressing, is the law's responsibility to address. Our opponents have claimed that restriction of cross-dressing made negative impact to the students and to the school. They also added that cross-dressing do not affect the students' academic performance as long as the cross-dresser didn't violate any rights of its co-student, there will be no problem. But our point doesn't only limit to the discriminatory fact, but restricting of cross-dressing also made significance and it is advantageous to the school. It encouraged discipline, helped students resist peer pressure to buy trendy clothes, diminish economic and social barriers between students, and increase levels of preparedness in their future field. However, we didn't deny the fact that majority are affected since self-expression has been limited. In summary, we want to point out that school policies are imposed for the students' safety and goodness. And contrary, if it violates their rights, then there is a necessary for the school's policy to be revised. That is all for this side of the house. Thank you.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, before I take my seat, allow me to take conclusion, reaffirm, and clearly write in saying that we, the opposition side of this house, strongly believe that cross-dressing should be considered to any universities because of one, to lessen the mental health issue to the LGBTQ students. Two, they can have the ability to fully learn in school because they can express more about themselves without being judged. Three, we are in the democratic country wherein we are free to express ourselves. Everyone has the freedom of expression and there is nothing wrong of expressing ourselves as long as it cannot negatively affect others. Four, cross-dressing do not affect the academic performance of the students. Five, and lastly, Cross-dressing is not the main source of discrimination, but the environment itself, the people itself, due to their mindset and lack of orientation or awareness about this kind of issue. That is why school and universities should allow cross-dressing in school, since we are in the 21st century, wherein our goal is to create a welcoming environment and practice inclusivity. And allowing this policy can be a stepping stone to achieve those. The more we promote this policy, the more we can attain a right, fair, and a safer community to live in. That is all for the opposition side, and thank you for listening.
Well, all of our debaters' claim has been delivered, and now the debate has come to an end. The announcement of winners will be announced after this short break. Sit back and stay tuned.